In the year 2139, space was no longer a mystery to humans. They had built cities on the moon, sent colonies to Mars, and launched deep space stations far beyond the solar system. Yet even with all this progress, humans still felt alone in the universe. Many believed that if intelligent aliens did exist, they were too far away or too different for contact to ever happen. For Dr. Ilara Voss, a quiet and intelligent scientist working at the Deep Space Listening Post Theta 9, that thought was both comforting and sad. Ilara had spent most of her adult life studying signals from the stars. She was one of those people who could spend days staring at patterns of light and numbers without getting bored. Her job was to detect any kind of transmission that didn't seem natural, something not made by stars, comets, or planets. Most of the time, she only heard static, random bursts of radiation or data from human satellites. But one cold night in November, something strange broke the silence. At first, it was just a small blip on her monitor, an uneven pulse, repeating every few seconds. Ilara leaned closer, her dark eyes narrowing. The signal was faint, almost buried under cosmic noise, but it was definitely there. It wasn't random. It had rhythm. It had structure. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the frequency filters. The sound became clearer, a sharp pattern of tones followed by silence, then tones again. It reminded her of Morse code, but this was something else entirely. "Control, this is Theta 9. "I think I've got something," she said into her headset. Her voice was calm, but inside her heart was racing. Back at the main communications center on Earth, the technicians rerouted her feed. Within minutes, several scientists and military officers joined the call. Everyone listened in silence as the strange transmission played on loop. The data analysis team ran it through translation algorithms, comparing it to all known human and alien frequencies, but there were no matches. Still, there was something hauntingly familiar about the tone. Hours passed, and then someone noticed a pattern in the pulse intervals. It wasn't just noise, it was language. The team slowly started to decode fragments of it. The translation wasn't perfect, but the message was clear enough to send chills through everyone in the room. "Help us. They are coming. We are dying." The message was being sent from a star system nearly 50 light-years away, known to astronomers as Traxsis 9. No human expedition had ever gone that far. The system was thought to be uninhabited, but now there was proof. Someone out there was alive and terrified. Ilara couldn't stop thinking about it. She stayed up all night listening to the repeating SOS. The tone sounded almost human in its emotion. Whoever had sent it wasn't a machine, they were desperate. She imagined someone on a distant planet, surrounded by destruction, using the last of their power to send a call across the stars, hoping anyone would hear it. The next morning, the United Earth Fleet was informed. A special emergency meeting was called in Geneva, where the top military and scientific leaders gathered. The discussion quickly turned into an argument. Some believed the signal was a trap, a fake transmission designed by pirates or hostile forces. Others said it could be a natural phenomenon mistaken for communication. A few, like Ilara, insisted it was real. Admiral Rhett Carlson, a man known for his calm but firm nature, sat quietly for most of the debate. He was a war hero, a man who had fought in the Titan Rebellion and seen humanity at its worst and best. When the room finally fell silent, he stood up. "If someone is asking for help," he said slowly, "we should at least find out who they are. If they're lying, we'll know. But if they're not, then we might be the only ones who can save them." His words carried weight. For decades, the galaxy had whispered about humans as the Deathworlders, a species born from a violent, dangerous planet. The nickname came from the fact that Earth's life forms were tougher, stronger, and more adaptable than most alien species could imagine. The few alien explorers who had visited Earth centuries ago had left in fear, calling it a world of death. Since then, humanity had lived with that reputation, part myth, part truth. But now that reputation might become a reason to act. Humans had faced war, famine, disease, and even planetary disasters. They had survived everything thrown at them. Maybe, Admiral Carlson thought, that made them exactly the kind of species someone would call for help when the universe turned cruel. Back at Theta 9, Ilara received new orders. She was to analyze the signal's origin and prepare all the data for a reconnaissance mission. For the first time in her life, she was part of something far bigger than science. Every second she replayed the SOS, she felt a strange connection to the unknown sender. During her breaks, she often recorded small diary entries. "I don't know who you are," she whispered into the recorder one night. "But if you can hear this somehow, we're coming. Hold on." Meanwhile, across Earth, the news leaked before the government could contain it. The public went wild. Some called it the discovery of the millennium. Others warned that humanity was walking into danger. Religious leaders claimed it was a sign from the heavens. Conspiracy theorists argued that aliens had been here for years and were now asking for rescue. The internet exploded with videos, theories, and fake alien decoders, but beyond the noise, a quiet determination grew. For the first time in generations, humans felt united by something larger than themselves. Not by money, politics, or territory, but by a cry for help from the stars. 2 weeks later, Admiral Carlson authorized Operation Dawnreach, a mission to travel to Traxsis 9 and locate the source of the distress signal. The fleet chosen for the mission was small but powerful. It included 5 warships, 2 exploration vessels, and 1 science ship commanded by Dr. Ilara Voss herself. The launch was scheduled for early December. As the ships prepared to depart, the crew received final briefings. No one knew what they would find: an alien world under attack, a civilization on the edge of extinction, or maybe nothing at all. The day before launch, Ilara visited the observation dome on her ship, the Horizon. From there, she could see Earth glowing below like a blue jewel. For the first time, she truly felt how fragile and beautiful it was. "If there's someone out there," she whispered, "we can't let them die alone." When the engines ignited, the entire fleet shimmered with white light, cutting through the void like a comet. Humanity had answered the call. As the ships accelerated toward the unknown, the SOS continued to play faintly in the background of their communications array. But then something strange happened. The tone changed slightly, as if whoever was sending it had noticed them. The final transmission came through clearly for just 1 moment before the signal vanished. "Please hurry. They are here." The words echoed through the cabin, leaving the crew in stunned silence. No one spoke for several minutes. Ilara felt her skin crawl. The fear in that voice was real. Far beyond the reach of any telescope, in the darkness of the Traxsis system, something enormous moved between the stars. The humans couldn't see it yet, but the sender of that SOS could, and whatever it was waiting. As the fleet disappeared into deep space, Ilara Voss sat alone in her lab, replaying the final message over and over. She didn't know what they were, but she knew one thing for sure. The moment that signal reached Earth, the universe had changed forever. The news of the alien SOS spread across the world like wildfire. Every television screen, every news channel, and every online feed was filled with one question: should humanity respond? The mysterious message from the Traxsis 9 system had already been confirmed to be real. Scientists, linguists, and computer experts had checked it again and again. It was not a trick of nature, not static, and definitely not a human transmission. Someone far away was really calling for help. Inside the United Earth Command headquarters in Geneva, tension filled the air. A large meeting hall was packed with officials, scientists, and military leaders. The world's most powerful people were arguing about what to do next. Some wanted to send a rescue fleet immediately. Others warned it could be a trap. Admiral Rhett Carlson sat quietly at the far end of the table. He was a tall man in his 60s with sharp gray eyes and a face that looked like it had seen too many wars. He had been a soldier for over 40 years, fighting in the Titan Rebellion and the Outer Belt riots. People called him the Iron Admiral because he never let emotions guide his orders. But now, for the first time in many years, he felt something stirring inside him: curiosity and maybe a bit of hope. Dr. Ilara Voss had been invited to the meeting as well. She sat nervously, clutching her datapad. Her discovery had become the center of global attention, but she didn't care about fame. She only cared about the beings behind that signal, the ones begging for help. She had listened to their voices night after night. Their fear had become something she couldn't ignore. The room was full of noise. A man from the Defense Council slammed his fist on the table. "We don't know what's out there. For all we know, it could be a lure. We go there and we never come back." Another voice shouted back, "And what if it's not a trap? What if real lives are being lost while we sit here talking?" The argument went on for hours. Some believed the galaxy was better left unexplored. Humans had seen too many wars, too much death. They didn't need to invite new dangers. But others said that ignoring a cry for help went against everything humanity stood for. Finally, Admiral Carlson stood. The room went silent. His voice was calm but carried weight. "We are human beings," he said. "Our ancestors crossed oceans, climbed mountains, and survived on a world that tried to kill them every day. If someone out there needs help, we go. That's what it means to be from Earth." The room stayed silent for a few moments. Then slowly heads began to nod. Even those who disagreed couldn't argue with the truth of his words. That evening the decision was made. Humanity would send a fleet, not a full army, but a small, strong task force. It would investigate the source of the signal and offer assistance if possible. The mission was given a name, Operation Dawnreach. As soon as the plan was announced, work began at lightning speed. Engineers rushed to prepare the ships. The United Earth fleet had not been fully mobilized in over a decade, but now, for the first time since the rebellion, the shipyards were alive again. Giant warships were powered up, their engines roaring like sleeping beasts awakening. Crews were called back from leave, scientists packed their equipment, and pilots sharpened their reflexes in training simulators. While the preparations continued, the rest of the galaxy watched with quiet fear. Humanity had a reputation, a dark one. Among the few alien races that had ever encountered them, humans were known as Deathworlders. The name came from Earth itself, a planet full of storms, predators, diseases, and extreme climates. Compared to most alien homeworlds, Earth was brutal. The life that evolved there had to fight for every breath. Alien explorers who visited Earth in the early 2100s had been horrified. They saw humans walking unprotected in rain that could contain acid, swimming in icy water, surviving in deserts that would kill most life forms instantly. To them, humans seemed almost invincible. One alien ambassador had once said, "They live on a world where everything tries to kill them, and yet they smile." Because of this, aliens feared humans. They saw them as violent, unpredictable, and dangerously strong. Over time, stories spread about how humans could adapt to any environment, fight until their last breath, and even make friends with the things that scared them. The name Deathworlders stuck, and though it sounded cruel, humans secretly took pride in it. Now that very reputation might become useful. If the beings on Traxsis 9 were truly in danger, humanity's toughness might be the only thing that could save them. Admiral Carlson knew this better than anyone. He didn't see the Deathworlder label as an insult. He saw it as a reminder of what humans could endure. "We come from hell," he once told his crew, "so we're not afraid to walk into it again." Dr. Alara Voss was assigned as the mission's lead scientist. She would travel aboard the Horizon, the fleet's primary research vessel. Her role was to analyze the signal's origin, translate any communication, and help establish peaceful contact, if there was anyone left to talk to. Though nervous, she felt a quiet excitement. She had always dreamed of meeting another intelligent species. Now that dream was about to come true, but not in the way she had imagined. In the following weeks, Alara and her team worked around the clock. They replayed the SOS thousands of times, adjusting frequencies, decoding patterns, and creating digital models of the sound waves. Through their efforts, they learned more about the message. It had been sent in multiple layers, some parts meant for machines, others for organic listeners. That meant the sender was technologically advanced. They weren't primitive. They knew how to build transmitters that could reach across the stars. What scared Alara most was a set of background noises in the recording. Beneath the main signal, faint rumbling and screeching sounds could be heard, like explosions, metal tearing, or creatures roaring. Whatever was attacking them, it wasn't small. Meanwhile, the world reacted in its own way. News networks broadcast countdowns to the launch. Some people celebrated, waving Earth's flag in the streets, proud that humanity was finally taking its place among the stars. Others were terrified. Religious groups called it the Armageddon mission. They warned that by going out there, humans might awaken something ancient and evil. Admiral Carlson ignored the noise. His focus was on preparation. He handpicked the crew himself, men and women who had served under him in past wars, soldiers who knew fear but never surrendered to it. Among them was Captain Juno Wei, a skilled pilot known for her fearless flying, and Commander Malik Reyes, a strategist famous for turning impossible battles into victories. During a private briefing, Carlson spoke to his officers. "We are not conquerors," he said. "We are not saviors. We are explorers answering a call. But make no mistake, if danger comes, we will meet it head-on. Because that's what humans do." Ilara listened quietly, feeling a mix of pride and anxiety. She wasn't a soldier. She had never been trained to fight. Yet something about Carlson's confidence gave her courage. The fleet consisted of 7 ships. The main warship, Solar Vanguard, carried most of the firepower. The Horizon, Ilara's ship, was packed with laboratories and scanning equipment. The other vessels provided escort and defense. Together, they would travel through deep space using a new type of drive that could bend space-time, allowing them to reach Traxsis 9 in less than 2 months. Before the launch, Ilara visited her old observatory one last time. She stood before the same console where she had first heard the alien cry. The sound still echoed in her memory, the strange rhythm of fear and hope mixed into one. She pressed her palm against the glass window, watching the stars. "We're coming," she whispered softly. "Please, hold on." As the final preparations finished, the crew gathered at the launch bay. The massive ship stood ready, shining under artificial lights. Technicians made final checks, engines hummed, and a voice over the loudspeakers began the countdown. 10, 9, 8. Ilara closed her eyes. 3, 2, 1. The engines roared and the fleet lifted into the sky. The Earth grew smaller behind them until it was just a blue dot in the distance. Humanity had taken another leap into the unknown. As they traveled farther from home, Admiral Carlson stood on the bridge, looking out at the endless darkness ahead. "They call us Deathworlders," he murmured. "Let's show them what that really means." Far away in the cold silence of Traxsis 9, the faint SOS still echoed, weaker each day. Whoever had sent it was running out of time. And now, for the first time in history, humanity was on its way, not to conquer, but to save. The journey to Traxsis 9 felt longer than anyone expected. Even with the new space-bending engines, the crew spent weeks surrounded by darkness. Stars drifted past like distant lanterns, and time seemed to stretch and bend. The fleet's 7 ships moved together in silence like a pack of wolves moving through a frozen forest. Every day, Dr. Ilara Voss monitored the signal that had started it all. At first, it remained steady, repeating the same desperate message. But then, about halfway through the trip, the signal began to weaken. The transmission started cutting out. Whole sections of the message disappeared, replaced by strange bursts of static and deep rumbling noises. Ilara's heart sank every time she checked her readings. It was as if the sender was losing power, or worse, losing their life. The scientists tried to clean up the signal using every tool they had, but nothing worked. Then one night the message changed completely. It became shorter, broken, almost impossible to understand. But one line came through clearly. "They are here. We can't stop them." Ilara felt a cold chill run through her body. She replayed the message again and again, but that was all there was. Someone out there was fighting something they couldn't defeat. When the fleet finally reached the Traxsis 9 system, everyone was tense. The moment they dropped out of warp, alarms went off across the ships. The system was full of debris. Pieces of metal, shattered satellites, and fragments of what looked like ships floated everywhere. The scanners couldn't even get a clear reading at first. The amount of destruction was enormous. Captain Juno Wei, piloting the lead ship Solar Vanguard, gave the order to slow down. "All ships hold formation. Scan for any active life signs." The fleet spread out, carefully moving through the debris field. Broken structures drifted past, some glowing faintly with dying energy. It looked like a battlefield, massive, brutal, and recent. There were no signs of who had won. Dr. Ilara stood in front of her console, staring at the data streaming in. Her stomach twisted when she saw the readings. The system had once held 3 inhabited planets, but 2 of them were now lifeless rocks. Only one world, Traxsis Prime, still showed signs of atmosphere and weak energy signals. That had to be the origin of the SOS. As the fleet approached the planet, the crew saw the truth. The world was scarred. Huge craters covered the surface. Entire cities were burning, their lights flickering like dying candles. Smoke and dust rose into the thin atmosphere. It looked like the end of a civilization. "Dear God," someone whispered on the bridge. The scanners detected movement in orbit, small ships, drifting and spinning aimlessly. They were alien craft, sleek and elegant, but broken. Some were still firing weak weapon bursts like dying animals still trying to fight. But what shocked everyone most was what they saw next. From the darkness beyond the planet's shadow, shapes began to move. Massive, twisted creatures, part machine, part organism, glided silently through space. They looked like metal insects, their bodies pulsing with red light. They didn't move like ships. They moved like predators. These were the Volthar swarm, though the humans didn't know their name yet. "Contact!" shouted Commander Malik Reyes. "Multiple hostiles approaching. They're locking on." Admiral Carlson stood straight, his voice calm. "All ships, defensive pattern Delta. Don't fire unless fired upon." But the Volthar didn't wait. In seconds, the first wave attacked. Streams of plasma and burning energy shot through space, smashing into the fleet's shields. The sky around Traxsis 9 exploded with light. The human ships responded instantly, firing railguns and torpedoes. The battle had begun. The Volthar were fast, terrifyingly fast. They swarmed around the fleet like a cloud of locusts, trying to break through their formation. The human gunners had never seen anything like it. The creatures didn't seem to care about their own survival. They rammed into ships, tearing chunks off their armor, and exploded in flashes of acid and fire. Admiral Carlson stayed focused. "Target the large ones," he ordered. "Cut off their swarm leaders." The Solar Vanguard fired a full barrage from its main cannons. One of the larger Volthar ships, an enormous creature that looked like a spider made of steel, was hit directly. It shrieked through the vacuum of space, its red core flickering before it split apart. For a moment, the swarm fell back, but only for a moment. More of them poured out from behind the planet. There seemed to be no end. Inside the horizon, Ilara clung to her seat as the ship shook violently. She wasn't a soldier, but she could feel the chaos of battle in her bones. Sparks flew from consoles, alarms blared, and the smell of burning plastic filled the air. She looked out the observation window and saw something that made her blood freeze. A massive Volthar ship was descending toward the planet's surface. It was almost as big as a city. "Ilara," shouted one of her team members. "The signal. It's coming from the surface, still active." She ran to her console. The faint SOS tone was still playing, coming from deep within a ruined city. Someone was still alive down there. She contacted Admiral Carlson immediately. "Sir, the original signal is coming from the planet's surface. Coordinates locked. Someone is still sending it." There was a brief silence on the comms. Then Carlson's voice came through, hard and steady. "Copy that, Dr. Voss. Prepare for ground landing. We're going in." Despite the battle raging in orbit, Carlson ordered part of the fleet to cover the horizon as it descended. As they entered the atmosphere, they saw the full horror below. The planet's surface was covered in destruction. Cities reduced to rubble, alien skyscrapers half melted, and fires burning everywhere. Strange flying creatures, small versions of the Volthar, darted through the smoke. When the horizon landed, the crew stepped out in armored suits. The air was thin but breathable. The sky glowed red from distant explosions. As Ilara looked around, she saw what had once been a beautiful alien world. Tall buildings of glass and silver lay broken, and strange symbols covered the walls. The ground was littered with bodies. Thin, pale-skinned aliens with large eyes and delicate hands. They looked fragile, peaceful, completely unprepared for war. Ilara knelt beside one of them, her heart aching. "These must be the Traxians," she said softly. "They never stood a chance." Suddenly, a movement caught her eye. From behind a fallen structure, a weak voice called out in a language her translator struggled to process. Ilara turned her head and saw a small group of survivors, Traxians barely alive, covered in ash and wounds. They were terrified at the sight of humans in bulky suits, but too weak to run. Ilara removed her helmet and stepped forward slowly, raising her hands. "It's okay," she said gently. "We heard your call. We're here to help." The alien leader, a tall figure with silvery skin and bright blue eyes, looked at her for a long moment. Then he spoke a single word that the translator finally caught. "Deathworlders?" Ilara froze. They knew about humans. But instead of fear, the alien's expression softened, like someone finally seeing hope after endless darkness. He fell to his knees and whispered, "You came." Ilara helped him stand. The Traxians explained what had happened in broken phrases. The Volthar swarm had appeared months ago, devouring planets. They weren't a normal enemy, they were a hive, a living weapon born to consume. The Traxians had sent messages to every known star system, begging for help. No one had answered. No one except the humans. Back in orbit, the battle continued. The human fleet, though outnumbered, fought with brutal efficiency. The Volthar had never faced enemies who used human-style tactics, unpredictable, reckless, and fearless. The solar vanguard rammed through 3 swarm ships in a single maneuver, its cannons tearing the rest apart. For the first time, the Volthar began to retreat. On the planet, the survivors watched from underground shelters as the sky lit up with explosions. "They fight like beasts," one Traxian whispered. "No fear, no hesitation?" Alara smiled faintly. "That's humanity for you." By the end of the day, the swarm had been driven back, at least temporarily. The planet was still burning, the cities still ruined, but the survivors were safe for now. Admiral Carlson ordered medical supplies and shelters to be deployed. As human soldiers helped the fragile Traxians, something remarkable happened. One of the alien children approached a human marine, offering a small glowing crystal. "Thank you," the child said in a shaky voice. The soldier knelt, accepting it gently. Around them, others did the same. 2 species that had never met before, one born from a peaceful world, the other from a deadly one, stood together amid the ashes. That night, as the fires slowly dimmed, Alara sat beside the surviving Traxian leader. He looked up at the stars and said quietly, "We thought no one would come. Your world is feared among the stars. They call you the Deathworlders." Alara looked at him and replied softly, "Maybe that's true, but today we came to save, not to destroy." Far above them, in the silent void, pieces of destroyed Volthar ships drifted slowly. The humans had won the first battle, but deep in space, something else was already stirring. The swarm was not gone. It was regrouping, watching, learning, and the next time it would be ready. The battle for Traxsis 9 had only just begun. The first wave of the Volthar swarm had been defeated, but everyone knew it was not over. The silence that followed felt heavy and false, like the calm before a hurricane. The human fleet remained in orbit, repairing damage and preparing for what was sure to come next. Below, the Traxian survivors tried to recover, still weak and afraid, their once beautiful world now scarred by smoke and fire. Dr. Alara Voss spent long hours working beside the Traxians, helping their healers use human medical kits to treat the wounded. She was amazed at how fragile yet graceful they were. They had no weapons, no armies. Their technology was built for art, healing, and peace. She couldn't stop thinking about how such a gentle civilization could survive in a galaxy full of danger. Now she understood why their SOS sounded so desperate. They were never meant for war. High above, Admiral Rhett Carlson stood on the bridge of the Solar Vanguard, his eyes fixed on the holographic map of the system. The Volthar swarm had retreated, but he knew they were regrouping. His experience told him this was just the first stage of a larger invasion. "They're testing us," he said quietly. "They wanted to see how we fight." Commander Malik Reyes looked up from his console. "And now they know," he replied grimly. Carlson nodded. "Then we make sure they don't live long enough to use that knowledge." He called an emergency war meeting. Every captain and squad leader from the fleet joined through holographic communication. The air was thick with tension. The Volthar ships they had destroyed were being studied by scientists, and what they found was terrifying. These creatures weren't built, they were grown. Each one was part living tissue, part machine, with brains that shared a hive mind. Destroy one, and the rest learned from its death. They were like a virus with a mind of its own. Dr. Alara joined the briefing from her lab. She explained her latest findings. "They consume technology and life alike," she said. "They don't just destroy, they absorb. Every ship, every creature they take becomes part of them." The officers listened in silence. No one had ever faced an enemy like this before. Carlson broke the silence. "We can't let them regroup. If they call reinforcements, this planet and every Traxian alive will be lost. We strike first, hard." He ordered the fleet to prepare for a counterattack. The mission was simple but dangerous. Track the Volthar back to their hive carrier and destroy it before it could summon the rest of the swarm. If they failed, Traxsis 9 would be erased from existence. The Traxian leader, Saran, begged the admiral not to risk his people. "Your kind has already done more than we could ask," he said. "If you stay, you will die with us." Carlson only smiled, a tired but determined smile. "Where we come from," he replied. "We don't leave friends to die alone." For the next 48 hours, the human fleet worked like a single living machine. Engineers repaired the ship's hulls, loaded fresh ammunition, and refueled plasma drives. Soldiers checked their armor and weapons. Some wrote messages to loved ones, unsure if they'd ever return. The hangar decks glowed under harsh lights as dropships were armed with nukes and EMP torpedoes. Dr. Alara helped prepare the scanning systems. Using the data from the Volthar wreckage, she created a signal detector that could trace the swarm's communication pulses. It didn't take long to find them. The readings showed a massive energy source hidden behind the planet's third moon. The hive carrier was there, a monstrous ship, bigger than a city, surrounded by smaller bioships moving like flies around a carcass. When the human fleet arrived, the sight was horrifying. The hive was alive, its outer skin pulsed like flesh, glowing with red veins. It looked more like a living creature than a spacecraft. Its surface opened and closed like gills, releasing smaller attack drones that moved with terrifying speed. "Contact confirmed," said Commander Reyes. "That's their nest." "Good," Admiral Carlson said, his voice cold. "Let's burn it." The battle began with a blinding flash. The Solar Vanguard led the attack, firing railgun rounds the size of buses. Each shot cracked through space, slamming into the hive's armor and tearing chunks of tissue and metal apart. Other ships followed, launching torpedoes that exploded in waves of blue plasma. The sky lit up like a storm of fire and lightning. The Volthar fought back fiercely. Swarms of living missiles shot from the hive, tearing into the human ships. One destroyer, the Orion's Edge, was hit directly. The crew barely had time to escape before the ship broke apart, its fragments spinning into the darkness. Ilara watched the chaos from her ship, the Horizon, which stayed behind to coordinate scans and communication. Her heart pounded as she saw the swarm pressing closer. "They're adapting," she shouted into her headset. "Their armor's changing pattern. Our weapons are becoming less effective." Carlson's response was immediate. "Then we changed too. Reyes, launch the suicide drones!" Hundreds of small unmanned craft shot out from the fleet. They were designed for one purpose: to get close and explode. The drones raced toward the hive, dodging enemy fire, weaving through debris. When they hit, the explosions ripped open massive wounds in the hive's structure. Red light spilled out like blood. Still, the Volthar refused to die. New limbs grew out of the damage, sealing the holes. Massive tendrils lashed out, grabbing one of the human ships and crushing it like paper. The fleet's situation grew desperate. Inside the Horizon, alarms screamed as shockwaves hit. Ilara gripped her chair, watching as the main screen showed the hive preparing to open its core, a huge glowing mouth that was gathering energy for a final strike. If it fired, the entire fleet would be destroyed. "Admiral," she cried. "It's charging its main weapon." Carlson knew there was only one choice left. All ships prepare the Helios bomb. The Helios bomb was humanity's most powerful weapon, a relic from the days of Earth's global wars. It could destroy an entire fleet, but using it in close range meant certain death for whoever stayed behind to detonate it. Reyes turned to the Admiral. "Sir, the bomb needs manual activation. Once armed, no one can escape." Carlson gave a small, sad smile. "Then I'll do it." Reyes started to protest, but Carlson raised his hand. "You have your orders. Get the fleet out of range. I'll handle the rest." The communication cut off before anyone could argue. Carlson's ship, the Solar Vanguard, broke formation and accelerated straight toward the hive. The rest of the fleet fell back, silent and helpless. From the bridge, Carlson looked out at the monster ahead. Its red core pulsed like a heartbeat. He thought about Earth, about the people waiting back home, and about the fragile beings on Traxsis 9 who would die if he failed. "They call us Deathworlders," he said quietly to himself. "Let's give them a reason why." He armed the Helios bomb and locked the course. The Volthar tried to stop him, but it was too late. The Solar Vanguard rammed into the hive's open core. A blinding light filled the void. For a few seconds, everything was silent. Then the explosion came. The blast was so powerful that it lit up the entire Traxsis system. The hive carrier was ripped apart from the inside, its flesh and metal burning in a storm of fire. Every Volthar ship connected to it screamed and died. The shockwave tore through space, shaking even the retreating human fleet. On the horizon, Ilara covered her mouth, tears running down her face. The signal from the Solar Vanguard went dark. Admiral Carlson was gone. The surviving fleet slowly returned to the planet's orbit. The Volthar swarm was broken, at least for now. The Traxians watched from the ground as the burning pieces of the hive fell like shooting stars across their sky. For the first time in months, there was peace. Later, when the dust settled, Ilara led a small ceremony on the surface. The Traxians built a memorial from the remains of their fallen city, a tall crystal spire engraved with both their language and human words. It read, "For those who fought for worlds not their own." Saran, the Traxian leader, stood beside her. "He gave his life for people he did not know," he said softly. "Is this what your kind calls heroism?" Ilara nodded, her voice trembling. "No," she whispered. "It's what we call being human." Over the next weeks, the humans helped the Traxians rebuild what they could. The two species shared knowledge and stories. The Traxians learned how humanity had survived centuries of chaos on Earth, wars, plagues, disasters. They listened in awe, realizing why the humans were called Deathworlders. They weren't creatures of destruction, but of survival. As the fleet prepared to return home, Ilara looked at the sky one last time. The stars were quiet again, but she knew this victory wouldn't last forever. Somewhere in the dark, other parts of the Volthar swarm still existed. The war had only just begun, but for now humanity had proven something no one in the galaxy could deny. They might come from a world of death, but they fought for life. Weeks had passed since the destruction of the Volthar hive carrier. The Traxian sky no longer burned with fire or smoke. Instead, it shimmered with calm light, as if the planet itself was finally breathing again. The human fleet remained in orbit for repairs, but most of the soldiers were already preparing to leave. The war, at least this part of it, was over. Yet deep inside everyone's heart there was no sense of celebration. Victory had come at a terrible cost. Admiral Rhett Carlson was gone, and his sacrifice had left a silence that no one could fill. Dr. Ilara Voss spent her days between the medical tents and the Traxian healing halls. She had learned to understand some of their language now, and though their words were soft and melodic, they often carried deep sadness. Many of them had lost entire families during the swarm attack. Children stared blankly at the ruins where their homes used to stand. But when Ilara walked through their camps, they always bowed slightly and whispered her name with gratitude. To them, she and the humans were not just saviors. They were living proof that kindness could still exist in a cruel galaxy. Every evening, Ilara would climb a hill overlooking the main settlement. From there, she could see the crystal spire that the Traxians had built in memory of the fallen. It reflected the light of the twin suns beautifully, glowing in shades of gold and blue. Etched upon its surface were the names of every human and Traxian who had died in the battle. And at the very top, in both languages, was the name of Admiral Carlson. Sometimes Commander Malik Reyes joined her. He had taken command of the fleet after the Admiral's sacrifice. The weight of responsibility was heavy on his shoulders. "You know," he said one night as they watched the horizon, "I used to think humans didn't belong out here. We're too aggressive, too unpredictable. But now I think, maybe that's exactly why the galaxy needs us." Ilara smiled faintly. "Because we fight?" "No," he said, shaking his head. "Because we care enough to fight. We don't back down when someone's suffering, even when it's not our problem." Their conversation was cut short when a Traxian scout approached, carrying a strange piece of metal. It was burnt, cracked, but still faintly glowing. "We found this near the crash site," the scout said softly. "It carries your symbols." Ilara took it carefully. It was part of the Solar Vanguard, the ship Admiral Carlson had sacrificed. There was a small plate still attached to it, engraved with his personal motto, "Survive. No matter the cost." Her eyes filled with tears. She whispered, "He did survive. In us." Back aboard the horizon, preparations for departure continued. The fleet had to report back to the human coalition, and there were already rumors of new Volthar movements in distant systems. Yet before they could leave, a strange signal appeared. It was faint, broken, but definitely artificial. It came from the edge of the system, near the debris field of the destroyed hive. At first, everyone feared it was a remnant of the swarm. The bridge went on high alert. Weapons were charged, and drones were sent to investigate. The tension grew as they waited for a report. When the drones returned, the data shocked everyone. "It's a pod," said one technician. "Human design. It's broadcasting an emergency beacon." Reyes and Ilara exchanged quick glances. Could it be? They rushed to the docking bay as the recovery team brought the pod aboard. It was heavily damaged, blackened by the explosion, but the life support system inside was still functioning. When they opened it, Alara gasped. Inside, barely conscious but alive, was Admiral Rhett Carlson. His body was badly injured, burns, fractures, and radiation exposure, but his heartbeat was steady. Somehow, in the last moments before the solar vanguard exploded, he had ejected himself in an escape pod. Maybe it was luck. Maybe it was the same survival instinct that had always defined humanity. Either way, he had lived. When he finally woke up 2 days later, Alara was sitting beside him in the med bay. She smiled when she saw his eyes open. "You really don't know how to die, do you?" she teased softly. Carlson's voice was weak, but his spirit was the same. "I told you. I wasn't planning to make it easy for them." Reyes entered the room soon after, saluting with a grin. "Welcome back, sir. You just made half the fleet cry and the other half start drinking again." Carlson chuckled, wincing from pain. "Good. Wouldn't want anyone getting soft." News of his survival spread quickly. The Traxians held a grand ceremony, calling him the light that fought the darkness. They gifted him a piece of Traxian crystal, said to represent life's endurance. Carlson, though still recovering, attended the event. When he looked out over the crowd, humans and Traxians standing side by side, he realized something profound. The battle wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about connection, about unity between species that had once been strangers. The days that followed were filled with rebuilding. Human engineers helped the Traxians restore their energy grids and purify their water systems. In return, the Traxians taught them about their advanced medical and environmental technologies. Together, they planted new gardens over the burned land, a symbol of renewal. Alara spent time documenting everything, planning to send a full report to the coalition so they could learn from it. But not everything was peaceful. One evening, a warning came through the communication channels. The fleet's long-range sensors had detected faint Volthar signals again, this time farther away beyond known space. The readings were weak but unmistakable. The swarm wasn't finished. When Carlson heard the news, he didn't seem surprised. "I knew it," he said quietly. "Cut off one head and 2 more grow back. The Volthar don't stop. They evolve." Reyes frowned. "Then what do we do now?" Carlson looked out the window at the stars, his expression calm but determined. "We prepare. We warn every colony, every ally. And next time, we won't just defend. We'll take the fight to them." Alara felt a chill run down her spine. She knew he was right. Humanity had awakened something in the galaxy that could never be ignored. They had proven that even a species from a so-called Deathworld could stand against the horrors of the void. And now, every alien race would look at humans differently, not just as dangerous creatures, but as protectors, survivors, warriors who fought for life itself. Before the fleet departed, the Traxians gathered to say farewell. Saran, their leader, stood before Carlson and Alara, holding a glowing crystal orb. "This light will always guide you," he said. "No matter how dark the universe becomes, remember that you have friends here." Carlson accepted the gift and bowed slightly. "And if you ever call again," he said, "we'll come." The fleet lifted off amid cheers and tears. The Traxians waved as the ships rose through the sky, leaving trails of blue light. For them, humans were no longer myths or monsters. They were legends. As the horizon left orbit, Alara watched the planet shrink into the distance. She thought about everything they had lost and everything they had gained. She thought about Carlson's survival, the lives saved, and the message that had started it all, the SOS that had changed the course of 2 civilizations. Reyes joined her on the observation deck. "You ever think about how it all started?" he asked. "Just one distress call from a planet no one knew existed." Alara nodded slowly. "Sometimes the smallest signals make the biggest changes," she said. "A single cry for help can wake an entire world." Carlson entered then, still walking with a cane but smiling as if nothing could break him. "Let's hope we keep listening," he said. "Because somewhere out there someone else is calling." And as the human fleet jumped into hyperspace, the stars stretched into streaks of light. Behind them, the Traxian world shone like a jewel in the darkness, a symbol of hope, rebirth, and the unbreakable spirit of those who refused to surrender. Far away, in the uncharted void, the remnants of the Volthar swarm stirred. Their hive minds buzzed in anger and hunger. They had felt the death of their kin, the burning of their carrier, and the sting of the humans' fury. They were learning, adapting, waiting, but this time humanity was ready. Dr. Alara Voss continued her research, determined to understand the Vulthar biology. Reyes began training new officers in swarm combat tactics, and Admiral Carlson, now recovered, met with the Coalition Council, warning them of the coming storm. The legend of the Deathworlder fleet spread across the galaxy, stories of humans who faced monsters and refused to bow. And somewhere in the cold expanse of space, another alien civilization received a faint message. It was not a cry for help this time. It was a promise: if you fall, we will rise. If you call, we will come. Humanity stands. The galaxy had changed forever, and though the darkness would return one day, there was a new light burning in the stars, a light born from courage, sacrifice, and the fierce, unyielding heart of mankind.